Good morning and welcome to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and today I'm going to be doing some work with stickers. So for starters, I must say that I cannot see comments when I'm in the display mode. So I'm going to just have to rely on everybody kind of getting all the information that they need, either from me or from Tracy, who should be watching and joining in. So first of all, the file that I'm using today is a freebie which I downloaded yesterday, and there's a link up in the group so that you can get hold of that. And I've just opened the PDF into Illustrator. So to start with, when we bring in something like this where we have an A4 document, first thing to consider are your print margins. So if I go and change this to do not scale, you can see that's the size it currently is. Thank you, Ian. You've very kindly just put your comments in for me. So morning Deb, morning Carol, morning Delcy, morning Jill. And if I've missed anyone, I apologise. So when we bring in our PDF, it's going to automatically come in at a full A4. Now you can see, if you look at our print margins, which are this little dotted line around the inside of our page, it's actually going to cut into some of our stickers. So rather than waste those stickers, you're going to go to fit page. Now if we look at the bottom of our preview, you can see that it has the magic number of 93%. So my suggestion is, before you go any further, write that down and pin it somewhere, because then whenever you're working with any images that are A4, you can scale those down and you know it's going to be at the right scale for your print margins. Morning Linda, morning Verna. Okay, so at this point, if you're happy, you can go to print. Okay, and that's going to be one of the ways that we will show you how to do stickers. So I can show you how we can then go straight to our ScanNCut and do that shortly. But for now, I'm going to cancel that. And I'm going to go to my other Illustrator. Now, this is important for me to note. If you are purchasing the ScanNCut link for Illustrator, currently it only works with Illustrator 2020 and not 2021. So as far as I've seen, I've not seen it anywhere where it actually states that, but I want you to be aware so that you don't accidentally go and purchase it and think, but it doesn't work, because it won't show up in 2021 at all. So I'm just going to type to look in that plugin folder there too. Okay, and then I'm going to type to restart as well, which is going to be fun to try and get back into. If it feels like it is thinking about it. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Finder. Let's see if it will work now. Hi Tracy. So I can only see Facebook comments at the moment because Ian's brought me his phone in so I can watch on his account. So if there's any comments on YouTube or questions, then do let me know. So I'm going to go to new. I'm going to start an A4 document, and then I'm going to check that it's actually loaded that plugin correctly first thing. So here's our A4 document, and has it? That is a jolly good question because it doesn't look like it has. Yay. Let's try that again with the plugins. Okay, it's got it in there. Oh boy. I won't throw it out the window just yet. Let's try that again, shall we? So I'm going to go into my plugins in 2021. I'm going to copy that one, go to my new plugin folder, and I'm going to paste it in there. There we go. Now let's restart and see if we can get it to ping up in there. Yeah, it's not there already. Yeah, my Illustrator usefully decided that it was going to update and forget about the ScanNCut link. So it's a little bit of a pain. Just a little bit. So hi Mum. Okay, so I need to take out the additional plugins folder. Okay, come on. If it doesn't work this time, I'll just show you our other way, and then I will come back and do ScanNCut link. Yay! It's finally there! Hallelujah! Right, I'm going to go to new. So when we're working with print and cut, you always want to be working with an A4 sheet, because you go to your smallest common denominator, and that's the size of your printer. We're going to go to resolution of 300 because we want a nice clear print, and go create. And it's going to think about it. So please bear in mind, at the moment my poor computer is running 2 lots of Illustrator and the stream, and I've also got Scal open as well. Okay, so I'm going to go to place. I'm going to go to downloads. I'm going to go to my B and bring that in. Now you can bring in either the PDF or the JPEG. The PDF is a better format for resolution. And let's just close up for a minute because I don't need it open anyway. And I'm just going to click. So don't click and drag, just click. And that's going to bring it in as is. Let's get some of these out of the way because I don't need those just yet. So with our image in place, I'm going to rotate it. So press and hold shift so that we get it up to that portrait. Right, ignore all the bits that I did about setting up the plugin, because you should do that when you first get the link anyway. Okay, so this is all the ScanNCut link, and thank you for updating on me, Adobe, so that I had to do that on stream. I really appreciated that. So we now have our image in place, and what I want to do now is I want to put on my registration marks. So if I go to the ScanNCut link, I can go add registration mark, and it's going to pop in these 4 little dots. Okay, so these are separate to your image, so don't look at those and think, oh, but no, you can't use 2 of your stickers. That's fine, we're going to resize those anyway, because bear in mind your readable area. Okay, and up here we have one layer that is layer 1. I'm going to rename that print, so it's really easy to see that that is our print layer. You can see that the ScanNCut has already named its own layer for those registration marks. Okay, this is the ScanNCut link for Illustrator. It literally only works in Illustrator. So this is why it's just one of the methods I'm going to show today, because while it's there as an option, as you can see, it doesn't work with the updated version of Illustrator yet, and until that point I'm not going to tell you all to rush out and buy it. But if you've already got it, how you get around that issue is you go up to your Creative Cloud and then go back to your older versions of Illustrator. If you do need help doing that, please do message, because I'm not going to show that on stream. just for security reasons. Okay. So, new layer, and I'm going to call this one cut. So that's so that we can switch them on and off. No, in Designer we have to use the other method that I've shown you before on videos, but I will be going back over that again anyway. So with our little group that is our image, we want to have that selected, so we press the blue, and I'm going to bring this up inside those registration marks. Okay. So we want that to fit within that area. So now if I go to cut, we can start to actually create our cut paths. Now there's a couple of ways that we can do that in Illustrator that we don't have access to in other programs like Affinity, because we can still trace that base image if we want to. However, you can also do the usual pen and trace manually if you wish. So just for time today, I'm going to use the pen tool just because I want to be able to cover as many different ways as possible, so that we can just do one and highlight it. So I'm literally going to go around here. And at this point you can ignore that it's filled with white, because we can go back and sort that out after. And I'm going round the centre of that white line. So if that white line was, for instance, an extension of your bleed, and you just want to have it so that you've got like a coloured outline, then you can go halfway along that too. And I'm not worried about necessarily getting it absolutely perfect first time. Just concentrating on what is a corner, what is around, and go from there. Okay, so if we go down here, we can see that that is filled with white and it has no stroke. First of all, go to default so that we can see that stroke. Click on the white, and then down here there's a little box that has white with a red line for it, and we can knock that out. Okay, so I'm going to adjust these handles just so it fits nice and smoothly into the centre of that border. Okay, and a little bit further out there. Okay, so Michelle, if you're going to be using Illustrator, as I said, I won't purchase the ScanNCut link just at the moment, just because it is, I'm finding I'm having to reinstall Illustrator a lot because it tries to automatically update and get rid of the older version. So, with our entire sheet done, if you can imagine that for now, I'm going to hide my cut layer so you can see how black outline has gone, and I'm just going to print that out as is. Now you'll notice here that my registration marks actually sit below the printable area of the printer. Don't worry about that at this stage. So we're just going to go and print that out. So send it to the right printer because it always helps. Do not scale and print. Okay, so that's going to pop out the printer hopefully. I'm going to hide my print layer and show my cut layer. And I'm going to go to File, down to the ScanNCut link, And then we have our usual options. How on earth can you remember all this info? Practice. Practice. Lots of practice. So we have our usual two options of whether to export it to an FCM or to transfer it via the internet. And for now, I'm just going to export the FCM. So, while I'm here, let's grab the USB, because it's obviously time to think about that. Pop that in. Oh, it's getting there, it's getting there, slowly. Jeez, come on. That's making it think. I would say it's usually quicker than this. Okay, so we can see that that is just going to put our flower. And we go, okay. It's going to ask us where to save it. So at this point you can go to your USB and we'll give it a name of sticker scan and cut link and save. Okay, and for now we'll ignore the rest of it. So if I go back to my other Illustrator and back to our file like this, so that was the ScanNCut link, and if you haven't got it, just forget everything I've just shown you. Literally, forget it. Doesn't exist. I'm going to now pick up that image and I'm going to resize it down. So we've got that as a selection. We can go up to transform and I'm going to lock the ratio. So make sure that you have this little chain link and it's in a black box like this. So if it looks like that, that means it's not on. But if it's black and linked, then that means it's on. Okay. You can select your width, so make sure you get both the number and the measurement, whether that's inches, millimeters or whatever. And we're going to type 93% because that was our magic number. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to go and print it because we want to check what's going on. Change that to do not scale because we've done that 93% for the machine, so it hasn't got to worry about it. And we can see it's a little low and we've got a bit of space up here. So our space is up by the right hand side of our sheet. Oh, and I'm going to go and move that like that. Okay, so now we can see that that fits within our printed area. Cancel. And again we can do the same process. So again we're going to call one layer print. Nope. It's not an SVG file. So this was the PDF print. Okay. So if it was an SVG and it's just shapes, then you could just send it to your machine. This is for those files that have like a watercolor effect, that may be a JPEG, maybe a PNG, maybe a PDF. SVGs can contain images, and if they do, then obviously your machine won't like them. So what I tend to try and do is encourage people to keep SVGs purely for using with paths. Otherwise it gets so confusing when people are going back to SVG files and saying, oh, it won't read in my ScanNCut. And that's why 9 times out of 10 it will be that there's image data, either in the form of an image that has been imported into a file, so like this, or because effects have been applied to a layer. And then when you go to SVG as an export option, it will take that effect, whether that's a drop shadow, an outer glow, or anything like that, and it will convert it into an image layer, which is fine if you're going to use that SVG up on the web, which is what they're designed for. But if you're going to take that to Electronic Cutter, it's going to throw a hissy fit. It may restart the machine, as some people have been experiencing this morning. It can just cause it to take an awfully long time to try and load it and then go, oh, it's too complicated. Or the other one is it will actually say that there's image data in it and the file can't be opened. So that is something to bear in mind. Whenever you're using SVG, try and make sure you only ever save paths with it, just to avoid that issue. So if we treat the SVG as a path file, then we save ourselves issues further down the line. And bye for now. Okay. So with our print now in place, I'm going to start a new layer. I'm going to call this one cut. Now this process you can do exactly the same way in Affinity, in Coral, in Inkscape, because you're not relying on that link. And again, if you're in Affinity, you trace around each one of these by hand. Gets a bit boring. So if I go to my image, I'm going to just duplicate it so that I have a copy. What do I do? So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go up to my cut layer. And I'm going to paste that in place. So that's quite important that we do that paste in place. That white offset can help, but it can also be a hindrance. So if we look at this bottom left little character, the little white dots running into that white background are actually going to be a bit of a hindrance, because it's going to dip around those dots when we want it to really focus on that outside line. So having pasted our image into our cut layer, I'm just going to hide our print layer so we're not paying attention to it, not accidentally editing it or anything else. And we can see that our image is sitting in there. We can then go to Object, Image Trace, Make. And it will say it's going to take a long time because it's a high resolution image. Do you want to continue? Okay. So it's thinking about it, and that's what it comes up with. Okay. Now, at this point you might be thinking, but that isn't what I want, which it's really not. We can start to go into colours. So if I go 16 colours, it's going to make it think an awful lot longer. Hi Sally. Did warn you it's going to take longer. And there we go. So you can see not only has it traced our background, it's also traced all of the colours And if you wanted to at this point, if you wanted to use some of those images to actually create like little layered characters, you can do, and do it that way. So that you can actually create coloured card stickers that actually have like a tiled effect to them. It's quite funky. But I'm only really interested in this yellow background here. Okay, so if we go, right, okay, I'm happy with that, and I like the effect, and I'm happy with this cut line, we can go expand, and you can see that it's converted that all to paths. So whereas we say about images versus paths, now we have something that looks like an image, but it is actually paths. So now we just want to keep just that initial background layer, and at the moment they're all grouped. So with it selected, if we do a Command Shift and G on a Mac or a Control Shift and G on a PC, it's going to ungroup all those elements so that we can click on them individually. Okay, so I'm going to use just that yellow area to actually do my cut path. Everything else can go. So if we click on, let's get everything else over in the background. I'm going to go all the way down, and you can see there's our background layer right at the bottom. And click. And shift and click. And I'm just going to drag all those to the bin. I'm even going to get that one there. There you go. So we just have our compound path that was our background. If we go to our nodes and click on them, it's going to look like this is all a big mess. Don't worry about that at this point. What we want to focus on getting rid of are these ones round the outside, so that we just have a nice central cutting area. So I'm just going to literally delete those nodes from around the outside, like so. So when I'm deleting nodes, all I'm doing is just pressing backspace, and we then have our lovely little stickers ready to cut. So I'm going to go to default again with those selected. There we go. And I'm going to empty out that fill using that none function. Then when we pop our print back on, you can see that we've got our stickers with our nice white border. Now let's say you don't want it to go around the absolute edge of that. What we can do is we can actually use offset to actually go and bring those lines in so they go through the centre of that path. So path, offset path, and we're going to go minus to go inwards, and 2 mil. And let's try that. There we go. So it's a little bit too close, so let's go minus 1.5 mil. And I tend to do my offsets in mils because it's just a little bit easy to get that kind of fine tuning with millimeters. Okay, so at that point we go OK, and it's actually going to give us 2 versions of that path. So decide which one you want to get rid of, whether you want to go for that bigger or the smaller. I'm going to go for the smaller one, and we can delete that. Finally, what we need to do for this one is we need to do our own version of registration marks. Now when I'm doing stickers, my registration marks I tend to leave just as lines, but if you are doing something like layered vinyl where you've got multiples of colours that you're overlapping, I would go for squares instead. But for this one, just because we're doing cut lines, go for lines. So if you think of it like that, so if it's cut line, go for lines. If it's layers, go for squares. And because we now can see quite visibly our printer area, we can actually go in and put those paths in those corners.
Hola.
Hello! It was playing me up today. I have a very unhappy Illustrator.
Well, because it's running now in a version that is...
Because I have two versions of it open. And I'm just going to press and hold shift, and you can see that it's going to use my smart guides to just form those two registration marks. Okay, so we know that this is the top of our paper and this is the bottom. So you can put another registration mark at the bottom if you want to. It depends on how much room you have. So it's a bit tight in these corners down here, whereas we have much more space up here. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to hide away my cut and I'm going to send that to print. So we've got our registration marks, it's fitting in our area, and print. I'm going to have loads of bee stickers. What? Is it out of ink?
It's running out of colour ink.
Oh no!
It's obviously not out yet because it's still printing, but we have one, so we're okay.
See, that's why we need the laser back up and running.
Yes.
It doesn't last long enough. So then I'm going to hide my print and put back on my cut. And we're going to go to Save As. Now this is important. Go to Save As and not Export when working in Illustrator. So if you're working in Affinity, go to Export. If you're working in Inkscape, you go to Save As. If you go to Corridor, it's Save As in there off the top of my head. And Tracy said I should be happy about having lots of stickers. Okay, so at this point I'm going to switch my format to SVG, and it's going to change to SVG up here. I'm going to go to Save. The SVG options that you need. First of all, profile needs to be 1.1. So this was another question that I got earlier. Why is it 1.1? It's an older version of the format, but it's not as old as 1.0. So 1.1 is the right one for a happy ScanNCut. Fonts will be converted to an outline. So that means that if there's any text that hasn't converted yet, then you're going to convert that as a sort of catch-all. And sorry I'm making your head hurt, Marion. I am. So if you're not certain about print and cut, this second method is the way to go. So especially if you've got something like the little guy that is down bottom left with the white dots, or if you can't get an image to do a direct cut, then this is the way to go. And we can go OK. Now what I will do, just so that we don't get too far down the line, is I'll show you how we then take that into canvas. At least there's not much of a delay today, so that's actually happening pretty much real time, unlike the other day. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put this up a bit bigger so we can see it a bit better and zoom in. So now when we go to SVG, I'm going to go back to my downloads folder where my B's are, and there's our SVG. Bring it in, and it's all going to come in black. Don't panic at this point. I'm going to select all of that, take that black out the centre. Some like it to misbehave, but if it does, then don't worry about it. I'm going to go to my line colour, and I'm going to set that to there, and then we can see that we have our registration marks, our sticker outlines. Oh, you still not got the masking. And we can take away that outline that goes around the outside because that was relating to the A4 paper. So at this point I'm just going to go to Save As, and then because I'm doing a Save As with this and with the canvas file, that means that if we want to print multiple loads of stickers, we'll always have that cut file to go back to, so we don't have to keep redoing the same process with the adding the registration marks, blah 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 blah. The trick to making Canvas open fast, it seems to be, is have nothing on your computer. So I've literally had to archive off nearly everything apart from those few download files, and that's only because I haven't copied those across yet, just so that I can use them for today. So at this point we can go to export and send it wirelessly, or save it to USB if you want to. So what I will do is I will also save a copy to my USB as well as sending it across the Wi-Fi so that we can have that in there. So I got the sticker, and this is going to be manual registration. Yep, not everybody has scale though here, so I will show scale in a minute as well, just so that we can kind of cover all the bases. Okay, so as they were saying about scale, I'll hop in here too, and this time I'm going to import my image, and you're about to see why scale is so useful. So I'm going to go into my downloads, and let's go for one that is an image. Let's go from unicorn, rainbow gnomes, and let's go for this little guy here. Just going to think about it. I'll get there eventually. There we go. Now, the joy of using a transparent background PNG is that it's automatically going to do that cut and print. So without you having to trace, without you having to faff, you've already got a cut path already done. Okay, and it's one of the things that I like most about scale, is that you have that ability to go, right, okay, straight away, poof, in, job done. And we can even view the printable area if we want to. So I'm just going to grab my little gnome, and I'm going to pull him up to this top corner. And if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can do your own registration marks. So this time I'm going to just go for a little square. And another little square just there. If we go into style, I'm just going to make sure that it is set to just print and print. just so I can make sure that it is going to print. Okay, so at this point we can print registration marks. It tends to only work with the silhouette rather than the ScanNCut though, so hence I've put in my own manual ones. We're going to print, hopefully it pops out the other end. When it thinks about it. He's doing a lot, bless it. What I will do is I'm just going to quit canvas, which is going to make it jump up and down usually, but okay, as that's now printing, I'm going to go back to my little squares and I'm going to set them to draw. So that means that when we export the FCM, it's going to set those as a draw line rather than a cut line. And we can go export, ScanNCut, and again we can pop that onto our USB, so I can call this one sticker scale. Okay, so what's the differences between those three processes? The ScanNCut link for Illustrator, the registration marks that appear on that mean that it will find them automatically on your machine, and then you can just let the machine handle it and you don't have to align it, you don't have to worry about it, just pop up, blade in and off you go. The manual method with Affinity, obviously there's a time implication in that because you are doing that manual tracing. But again, it does mean that you can have much more control over it in terms of if you want to pick out different areas. I find that Affinity is a lot better for doing things like the sort of manual contouring as well. So whereas in Illustrator I had to key in what offset I want to do, in Affinity you have the contour tool, and that means that you can actually manually drag that line to where you want it to be along that white border, so you can decide exactly how much of that white border you want to show. Finally, Shortcuts a lot. Shortcuts a lot is great for anything that you are using that is PNG with a transparent background, because it totally skips out that tracing step. So if you know that it is a PNG and you know it has a transparent background, then my first port of call is to go to Scale, because I know it does it perfectly every time. Okay. Finally, if all else fails, so Janine, if you're watching, if you can't get your machine to recognise a registration mark, whether you're using the print to cut in Canvas or if you're using the ScanNCut link, usually it's because that your printer's gone out of alignment and it can't read that registration mark properly. Second reason might be that the scanner needs a good clean. So there's a video up on YouTube that we did where Ian took the machine apart, showed you how to clean all the glass. Go back to that one and try that. And finally, if all else fails and you can't get it to work, then do a direct cut, but get the machine to send it to Canvas, and then you can import it into Canvas, and that's going to be the next process I'm going to show you. And let's bring you over to me. So I already have a printout that I've done. I'm going to use an older map for this one because it's only a half cut. So if I just show you very quickly, there's no registration marks on this one. And press that down onto my mat. Load my mat. Okay. Go to scan, direct cut, and then you would press this one. Type start. If you've been drawing, lower the scan bar. There we go. That's going to scan through. That's going to transfer it across to canvas. Go OK. Then at this point you would go back into canvas. Do a little tap dance while it's loading. Okay, so at this point you're going to go to File, Import from your cutting machine a scanned image. There we go. So at this point you can do the same method if you wish of doing the manual trace, or if you want to do an image trace with that image, you can go into the machine like so and trace it that way, so that it's just going to pick up that outside colour like so. I'm going to go OK. And there we go. And if we go to layers, we're going to see that we've got all our grouped shapes. So like before, we can scroll down, 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 and select those. Then I'm going to scroll back up and see where my yellow is and take that out of the selection by pressing and holding Command. She says, come on. Oh, it's on my right to see it. Tell you what, let's do it the other way, shall we? While it's complaining. Ungroup. There we go. I'm going to click off it so it doesn't have anything selected. So there's little bits here that are just going to mess up, but I'm not too bothered with that. So the rest of it can just go. So that's right in the middle, usefully. So I'm just going to go press onto another shape just above Go all the way up to the top, shift and click, delete. There we go. Then below it, so there's our background shape, and we're going to go all the way down to the bottom, and we can even take out those image files as well and delete, so that we just have our background. Come on. It's thinking about it. I would like my pizzas while they're still warm. Hey! So there we go. So at that point, you're going to go to export transfer via the internet. Okay. Go. Whoa. Behave, iPad. Back over to our overhead. And we're going to press this button just here. That's going to put it back down off the internet. We can still do an offset if we want to, so if there's bits that we aren't happy about, or if you want to just bring it in a bit around those stickers, you can do. But I'm just going to go OK. I'm going to pop in my vinyl blade. Go to please select, cut, settings. I'm going to go down the screen. Turn on half cut. I tend to leave my half cut pressure on auto, so unless I do something and it pulls it particularly, then just leave that bit auto. Don't need a weeding box because it's only stickers. And we'll go OK. Let's see if I can get you a bit more zoomed out so you can see it cutting. There we go. Oop. There we go. It's a bit of a funny angle. But it's better than watching a countdown. So if there's any of those methods that you would like me to go back over in more depth, then please do let me know. So if you are having issues with the ScanNCut link, please do message me and we'll help you get it fixed. It's just that you have to go back a version in Illustrator, unfortunately. If you have a download where you have PDF, JPEG, and let's say a PNG for argument's sake, if you are working in Illustrator, you want to use the PDF. If you are working in Scale, you're going to want to use the PNG. I tend to only use JPEG as a last resort, just because it does lose data, so it can be a bit fuzzy. And hi Sarah Lou. So any questions before I sign off for today? And then what I'll do is I will cut all of those and pop them up on the group so that you can see the differences between how the cuts work. And I might even pop up some notes as well so that you can see sort of when to choose which option. And Carol, with regards to your masking issue, Ian and I will try and connect with you later about it, just so that we can see what's going on with it actually in front of us. So any questions before I go? Okay, we're nearly there. There we go. So very quickly, just so you can see this one sheet in cut. And there is our cut stickers. So just tilt that, you should see the cut line round. So one of the issues that we have, and this is why I always say about, you know, trying to make sure that you have a bleed, is that sometimes, even when you're using the direct cut, is that you do get that offset between the two. So what you can do to negate that is, number one, make sure that your machine is calibrated. Number two, you can actually nudge your design if you need to. So that's the other reason why I tend to go for the manual method when I'm doing something like print and cut, in that you can actually line up those registration marks and make sure it's going to be smack on. Okay, so at that I'm going to call it a day. I will probably be not around too much this afternoon, just because I want to try and get a crack on with the next book. So I will see you tomorrow at 6 PM. So that's not 11, it's going to be at 6. Okay, so take care and bye.